Cincinnati Bengals versus the Philadelphia Eagles. You got Cincinnati and Philadelphia both 0-2. I wouldn't have thought Philadelphia would start the season 0-2. This is a big game for Philadelphia. Cincinnati, we'll talk about them in just a bit because I have a gripe to throw out there. Let me hit you with projections here. Look, I know he threw the ball 61 times last week. I don't love it for Burrow, but if you have him, I do love Burrow in daily fantasy. Take a flyer on him. But I don't love him against the Eagles this week. Mixon, at this point, I do not have a start projection on him. I don't. I realize draft capital, you're probably going to play him and hope something changes. The Philadelphia Eagles, the one thing their defense is doing is keeping the yards per carry down. I don't like it. I don't have great projections on A.J. Green, but I do have a start designation on Tyler Boyd, so that's a better matchup, that secondary wide receiver. Now, Cincinnati, I do have a start grade at tight end, but I guess that's sample now because Uzomah is on the IR. Again, that's more of a daily fantasy. I think you can do better in your fantasy leagues with something that a little bit more stable. Philadelphia, I have a sit on Carson Wentz. He's not playing great football right now. I watched that game, didn't like what I saw. Miles Sanders is a start. Boston Scott, I think, has a great matchup this week. I like him, especially in daily fantasy. Don't have anything at wide receiver, and actually the tight ends aren't as good as they usually are. I'm a start on Eifert, and I am probably a sit on Dallas Goedert. I don't say that often because I do like both tight ends in this offense. I just don't like the matchup this week. Take it away, David.
I'm going to start with the Bengals. Let's talk about Joe Burrow, man, because I started coming around on him towards the end of right as we went to the season, and I was not anywhere near high enough on this guy. I mean, to me, what stands out is the athleticism and the rushing ability. We don't even have to talk about the fact he threw 61 passes this past week, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's great. He rushed for 46 yards and a touchdown week 1, and then he rushed the ball 7 times again this past week. So even in a 1 QB format, you got to go out and get Joe Burrow because as he starts to settle in, this team's going to need to score. We've seen the defense. It's absolutely atrocious. Mm-hmm. I think Joe Burrow's got major blow-up weeks. Just you talk about when he gets in the end zone as a rusher, you throw in the passing, and he's gonna have some top 5 finishes this year on a weekly basis. Talk about the wide receivers. One thing that stood out to me this past week, T. Higgins outsnapped A.J. Green. A.J. Green got all the noise because he had those 13 targets. Everybody was analyzing those. T. Higgins outsnapped him. The snap count we had, Tyler Boyd, 85 snaps. Holy moly. How the heck did they play that many snaps? 85 snaps. Target this whole, even that makes me high on Mixon. 85 snaps offensively. Holy moly. Maybe it's an opportunity to buy low on Mixon. I don't love him, but
yeah, I would. Let me jump in there with Mixon. Don't sell on him. The same exact thing happened last season. Do not sell on him because people that sold on him really got punched in the mouth the second half of the year. Now, whether or not you're playing matchup, I'm cool with that. And if you don't have Mixon, you're right. It's a buy low scenario because I know some fantasy owners are panicking. Anyway, go ahead and cut back in on me, David.
So we had Boyd at 85, T. Higgins at 65 snaps, A.J. Green at 62, and then another thing stands out. It looks like Michael Thomas has – the other Michael Thomas, I should say, has overtaken John Ross.
He looks good.
He played 35 snaps to Ross's 30. So in like a deep dynasty league, maybe you pick up Michael Thomas. You know, anything happens to A.J. Green, he could start seeing some more in 3 wide receiver sets. You talk about Drew Sample. He caught 7 passes for 45 yards. If you combine him and Uzomah's stat line last week, we have 11 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Drew Sample, you talk about 12-team leagues, the tight end, it's already going to be bare after 2 weeks. Yeah. Your options, maybe you have Chris Herndon on the waiver wire. After that, maybe O.J. Howard. Like, there's nothing out there.
Right.
2 guys who stand out to me this week at tight end for ads. One would be Dalton Schultz, obviously, who went off with Dallas. The other, Drew Sample, I mean, he needs to be rostered in 12-team leagues after this week. If you don't roster him this week, somebody's going to pick him up, and you're not going to have a chance to get him next week.
Let me talk a little bit about Joe Burrow. By the way, I've been if you're watching on YouTube, you probably saw that I was a little distracted. So one of the things I do before the season, now that we're seeing the football and baseball card market just go nuts and stuff, I buy all the rookie quarterbacks. And so, you see this little card here, this little one of the releases, it's the Joe Burrow card. Whenever I see it, I buy early in the season on eBay. I go in, I pick this card up for $2. This card is probably now worth $20, maybe even 30 at this point. And it's just going to keep going up. Something about Cincinnati's offense, and the reason I do that, and it's a point that I'm illustrating, is Zach Taylor. First of all, even if he sucks as a coach, and I don't like him as a head coach, I don't. I'm on record as saying that. I didn't like him last year. I don't like him now because I think as a head coach, what he should be doing is feeding Joe Mixon. You throw the ball 61 times, Dave, you probably have the stat up, but how many targets did Joe Mixon have this week in the receiving game?
I'll tell you, he had less than Giovanni Bernard. He had, I don't know about targets. He had 4 receptions, 40 yards.
I think it was 4. I believe it was 4 targets, 4 receptions. I think he caught every target he got, if I remember correctly.
And he looked good on him. And every time he heats up, they just take him out of the game. It makes no sense.
It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. He is, and I like Cincinnati's personnel. I do. I love AJ Green and Tyler Boyd and they're full stable wide receivers. You mentioned Higgins. Like, I love their talent. Joe Mixon is the most talented offensive player on their roster, and they never give him the damn ball. It's not that complicated. It really is not. When we saw in the back half of last season, what did we see? Why did Joe Mixon's stock go through the roof during the fantasy draft cycle? It's because of what we saw the back half of the league. But what I said in the offseason, I'm not sure if it was one of our recordings or not, David. As I said, Zach Taylor wants to throw the ball. He wants to be the new Dirk Cutter. He wants to just chuck the ball. We saw it with Andy Dalton early in the season last season. We saw it when they went to whoever that guy was, that backup quarterback. They just started chucking the ball. When Mixon went crazy, he was going crazy mainly when Cincinnati was losing by like 2 or 3 scores late in the game. And he was getting all this chunk yardage against kind of soft defensive fronts. And I'm like, what is this guy doing, Zach Taylor? Like, what is he doing as a play caller? I hate it. I do watch every game, so Bengals fans, I know you're coming in and say, oh, actually take the time to watch the games because I get that comment a lot. I watch every game of the NFL season. Do you? I mean, like, I know when an offense is good, right? I see what Baltimore does. I see what Atlanta does. I see what Dallas is doing. Cincinnati, give the ball to Mixon. Control the clock. Help your young quarterback out, who looks incredible, by the way. And by the way, let me talk about Burrow. Let me give you the glass half full part. Joe Burrow, 61 attempts in his second NFL game. And he looked good. He looked so good, dropping dimes, using his legs. He is going to be a star. I just hate that they don't use Joe Mixon more. In Cincinnati, they're a better team than what we're seeing on the field right now. And I wouldn't even say we're seeing a bad team. But Cincinnati can be better. They need to drop Taylor. I'm telling you, I said the same thing a game or two in last season with Cleveland. But what's different is I don't think Brown likes. He likes paying 2 head coaches. I think he's going to run out his contract, and I think we're going to be pulling our hair out. I'm worried if I'm a Mixon owner. I am. I'm not selling just yet, but I'm worried. There's my rant.
All right, what's the next? Oh, no, one more thing before we go to the next game because I didn't say anything about Philly.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a whole lot to notice this. Miles Sanders, he's definitely a DFS option. Look at what Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt did to the Bengals last week. I mean, right now they have the second most fantasy points allowed to running backs through 2 weeks. So Miles Sanders, you're firing him up this week.
Yep, absolutely. And he does add, I mean, Philadelphia needed him so bad, so it's good that he came back. But I really, it's funny to say, people are probably going to feel like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But they need Alshon back. They need a possession receiver on the outside. And once they do that, you get Deshaun Jackson maybe running more routes. I like early returns on, Rager. I like Ward. I don't like Arcega-Whiteside at all. If he was ever going to do anything, he would have done it by now. He's had ample opportunity. He's worthless to me. But let me hit you with the line here, David. Cincinnati, this is funny because this is another difficult line for me. Cincinnati plus 6.5 versus Philadelphia. Who do you got?
I'll take Cincinnati in the points just because Philadelphia, they need to get it together. They're not there yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, we were just talking about this before. I mean, Philadelphia, the one thing their defense is doing really well right now is they're, stopping the run. Cincinnati doesn't care about that. They're not going to run the ball. They're not going to throw screen passes to Mixon to, so that we can be freaking crazy about Cincinnati and their play distribution. But, I seriously, honestly think Burrow's going to throw the ball for another 50 times. And those receivers, we've been talking about them all offseason, man. I like them. I like Cincinnati plus the points. I do think Philadelphia, they have good leadership on the team. I know things are in flux. I think they'll put it together and win this game as a close game. I have it Philadelphia plus 4, so I am taking Cincinnati to cover the spread by 6, with those 6.5 points. All right.